recording. So we've got that. We've got a few people connected. I will continue to monitor the entry room there. And so why don't we go ahead and get started with some introductions. And first off, I'd like to welcome everybody on our Zoom session for this January 2022. And I want to also call out a few of our board members that have joined. And let's start with our president, Mike, AI6AB. And Mike, good morning.
Good morning. How's everybody doing so far?
We're doing really well. I think everybody's getting connected in a nice coordinated fashion. And I think some have some Zoom experience, some are getting their Zoom experience now. So
was this also supposed to be simultaneously on Google too?
No,
Okay.
Just Zoom only. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to know.
All right. And then we have our treasurer, Dan, 86HK. Good morning.
Good morning. If I disappear, it's because the tsunami got me.
If it got you, it'll get me too. So maybe a lot of people on the call will lose a lot. So yeah, we'll just play that by ear. If we hear something, we'll start running. All right. And then we have Frank, KR6. Oh.
For those of you who are interested, you can Google tsunami inundation map and it'll take you to the USGS and it'll give you sort of an idea of, you know, who may be impacted if it was something major.
Okay. And if you're on the impacted area, you can go ahead and maybe move to your phone and go mobile on the activity. And I joke it because the level of concern was down on the tsunami activity. So, all right. So Frank, KR6AL, good morning.
Hello, Albert. We're just using my tablet. I'm not really a Zoomer, so it's what I had the software on.
Yes, and hopefully we'll see your cat in the middle of the, or record the cat at least one time jumping on your chest for during the session. So that sounds good. And let's see, do we have any other board members on? Endaf, N6UTC, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone, and welcome to my kitchen here in North Long Beach.
Hey, what's for breakfast, Endaf?
A cup of tea.
Oh.
All right, great. Well, and so let's go ahead on and move to our one of our hosts, and John Kruk. John, am I pronouncing your last name correct? Is it Kruk? Kruk?
Yeah, it's Kruk. Just like cops and robbers, Kruk.
All right.
Describe it.
Well, thanks for joining us this Saturday morning, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you and to end off as well.
All righty, perfect. So I would just like to let you know that Endaf does never cooks me breakfast or brings in breakfast for me when I'm out at the office. I just want to say that. So
100%.
Yeah, so not even a cup of tea. Nope. But I'm a water Duncan Hines, or not Duncan Hines, Dunkin' Donuts. Anyways, so we'll get over that. Sorry about that. Anyways,
bagels, by the way, thanks for the bagels.
You're welcome. See, I bring in bagels. But anyways, thank you for having me on today. I know today's presentation is going to be about WiresX. I guess the easiest way to start out about it is just give you a little bit of my background. I have the title of National Sales Manager, but I feel I do more like working with the customers, working with systems design and stuff like that, than I do more so actually sometimes with sales, which probably the boss may not like, but it goes hand in hand because then people can build their systems and go from there. So a little bit about myself. I got started in amateur radio back in the early 90s. I've always, for the most part, lived in Wisconsin. I live in northern Wisconsin. So if you're ever wondering where exactly I live, if you look where I-94 crosses from Minnesota and Wisconsin, 19 miles in, there's a little place called Baldwin, Wisconsin. We're about a town of 2,500, maybe about 30,000 people. And we're a small little commuter town, little bedroom community. We're very close to the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities area. on there, but we do get to claim that we are in Wisconsin and not Minnesota. Yay. But with that being said, I started in radio in 1993. Yeah, I think about 1993. I was getting my amateur radio license as a teenager. I'm also involved in public safety. I've been in law enforcement. I've been in fire. Right now I am a community critical care field supervisor, paramedic for our ambulance service, that when I'm not doing Yezu and nights and weekends and stuff like that, I actually play on there. But being that I've been a dispatcher, I've been a dispatch supervisor, I've been the radio guy, I've been a technician. As a matter of fact, before coming to Yezu, I actually worked for a county sheriff's department maintaining their radio system. So I've done simulcast, I've done P25, I've done DMR, I've done Next Edge or IDAS, depending on how you want to say it on there. I do have private radio systems and stuff that actually use these digital voice technologies. But one of the reasons I left that public safety realm and came to Yezu was because I was getting tired of telephone calls at 3 a.m. Of saying, hey, my dispatch console doesn't work, to get up, get dressed, and especially if it's the wintertime like here, -15 as a temperature, finding out that the dispatcher somehow magically cut their microphone cord at 3 a.m. Anyways, so kind of said, hey, I don't have to be on call. I can do a little travel, get to play with radios and stuff like that. And that's why I did that there. One of the things, though, I will stress is that, and the reason I bring this up is because I've seen a lot of the different digital voice technologies. I went to Yezu System Fusion because one of the other hats I wear is as the EC for the county that I live in for Aries Races. And we were looking to go to a digital mode. And at the time, we looked at a lot of digital modes out there, and each digital mode has a niche. And that's why I'll put it there. There's something that does it. All righty. And just like anything else we have in the world, like data modes on HF or stuff like that, or even analog modes, we have FM and AM and single sideband stuff. There's never going to be one digital mode, but there's going to be the digital mode that suits a person or a group or club or organization the best. And I felt Fusion was that way. And I played with Fusion for about 4 years since its inception, prior to starting with Yezu. So I have a good grasp on it, and I really like it. And the reason I like it is because, one, it's simple. 2, it's very versatile in nature. And 3, it does actually good, high quality digital voice. That is one of the things on there, but that's why I went with Fusion. It's not super compressed on voice. The voice quality is there. But what more tipped my hat, and which is what we're going to talk about today, is the flexibility of Yezu System Fusion. That is the key element to me on there. One of the components of the key element of Fusion is the connectivity factor. So I'm going to say I'm going to make it an assumption. Probably I'd say at least half of you in here have either a hotspot or have used a hotspot at some point in their life. Whether you have a hotspot now or you had one before, you don't have one now, whatever. Someone has always used a hotspot. Okay. I say that because the concept of hotspot really sort of came from a concept of what we had. Okay. It's like, that old saying, it's like, hey, why do we have the weird multi-bending kind of paper clips? Well, because someone wanted a different paper clip besides the one that we know is a paper clip. All right. But with that being said is that the Wires X universe is very expansive. And I say it that way because for a lot of people who may not be aware of it, Wires X was actually a solution to a problem because of regulation. I know that's a lot, and I'll get it to you here in 1 second. So I'm gonna change my screen here real quick, and you would think I know how to deal with Zoom myself. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. Here, let me try to operate my screen now.
There you go.
All right, perfect. So, Fusion. So, give you a little history to understand how Wires X came into it, and more importantly, why Wires X operates the way that it is. And I laugh because I get so many calls or emails or things of people going in and saying, I want Wires X to do this. I want it to do this, and it needs to do this, and needs to do this. And lots of times I have to tell people, no, it's not going to happen that way. It's not going to do it. You know, people want a little WiresX device, like a little hotspot, Zoom spot kind of device that's all in one. That's not going to happen because of why WiresX was invented. So we go back to 2013 real quick. Okay. Just like Golden Girls, you know, picture it. 2013, Yaesu System Fusion as a product was released to the market. It was released with handhelds, which was the FT1 way back in the day. And then it was released with the first mobile, which is the FTM 400 series. It was released with the repeater. Now, this is where the problem came into play, because when the repeater was released, certain countries, and that number's actually gone down, believe it or not, prohibited the usage of a Yaesu System Fusion repeater. So you cannot have a repeater and use the Yaesu System Fusion digital voice protocol on it. It was absolutely illegal. So what happened was that they said, well, wait a minute. Where are you going to use it? Just in simplex? Well, simplex is not going to get you very far. There needs to be an infrastructure network that was on there. And that's where WiresX came into play. So instead of having a repeater that would take, obviously, and in the true sense of a repeater, meaning in on one frequency, boost it up, powered out on a secondary frequency. What happened was that they said, okay, if we can't make a repeater to do that, how can we make an infrastructure network where it's a series of points or contact points? And if you had these multiple points, nodes, connected together, then people would be able to talk about it. So then what you could do is you could roam an area on simplex, or as some people did, you have the node 1 mile that way, and then that was on one frequency, and then you had the node, let's say here, on a different frequency. And if the two nodes were connected to one another and they happen to be on separate frequencies, then maybe you could program your radio to transmit into one node but receive off of another node, and thus a repeater was in essence made, and it was totally legal. So it was kind of, once again, a solution to a problem that was on there. So what was that solution? Well, the solution was WiresX. Now, WiresX, real quick, came out of the birth of wires. I don't know if anybody ever heard of wires, predominantly wires 2. And what wires 2 comes into play is it comes into that, hey, as I get approached at some shows, what is the purpose of the big bang button on the radio? And I've had to people say, what do you mean big bang button? And what it is that if you actually look on our analog radios, we had the little atom symbol like they used on the Big Bang Theory. People didn't know what it is. They knew that if you push that button and you keyed up, it would make an annoying DTMF sound. And people were like, what the hell is that button for? Well, here's what it was for. In our office in California there, we went along and we said, man, now this is back in the days of you got mail. Okay, we're talking that kind of internet speed, okay? And what was happening was before, you could just link via RF. That's all you had, right? Before the internet, we can link via RF. Well, what's the limitation of RF? Well, distance, right? You can't, you can't hop on, 146.52 and talk to me on a handheld from California to Wisconsin, right? But what happened was that we were starting to use the internet. So wires actually came about of an idea of a concept saying, hey, what if we took a device, connected it to the radio, and connected that device to the computer and use the internet to connect the two? That works like a great idea. And wires, once again, was born out of our office in California there. And I, so proud of us because, a lot of people think, well, oh, it's, Yaesu, it came out of Japan. No, wires came out of our office in California. And what the concept of that was really was nodes and groups, actually sister groups, sometimes they're referred to as. And what it did was saying, hey, I can call up your node and I can go from my node to your node. Done, happy, right? Or we can get a group or a sister group of nodes together where when I send a DTMF command, when I pushed a button and I key up, it would do that. It would instantly connect out to all those nodes that were connected together. And instantly I could go across multiple locations. Now, the cool part about it was it allowed me for repeaters as well as nodes. And I'm going to cover what that kind of is here in a minute here, because there's a big difference of ideology and usage on it. So that was what it is. And then it birthed into wires 2, because there was wires, which was sort of like the pre-phase. And then they made some addition enhancements and stuff, and they came out with wires 2. Well, what happened was when we got it with Yaesu System Fusion, wires was that solution for people who didn't have repeaters, because you could do nodes with wires. But what happened was, this was Yaesu System Fusion, it was digital. So what did we have to do? Well, we had to cross over and we had to bridge digital together. And that's where the X of Wires X came from, because it's crossing. Wires X is a infrastructure technology, is the best way to put it, or linking technology that allows transcoding at a network level. Just like our repeaters allow transcoding at an infrastructure level, Wires X allows transcoding at a network level. And I'll show you that in a minute here on our slide here. But with that being said, now what we could do is we could take a small black box, which is called the HRI 200, because guess what the HRI 100 was? The black box for wires 2. All righty. And this HRI 200 basically act, for all intents and purposes, a sound card converter, if you will. And what it did basically is it took the digital data we would receive over the air, and then at a high sophisticated level, went along and converted it into an analog stream or a voice digital stream to send it down the network. So that's where it came into play. Now, what happened is that you had a couple setups. So this was the first kind of basic rudimentary setup on there. As a matter of fact, if you took the FT5 out of there and you took the FT1, and I had my FT1 here the other day. Okay, don't tell my wife I got too many radios, but okay. Anyways, so you had it. So picture that FT5 as the FT1, and that's what people were doing. They were taking their handheld, talking into the FTM 400, which would then go to the HRI 200, and now I was able to connect to other users using the HRI 200. And this was back in 2013, 2014. Now, the cool part about this sophistication of something is now I could run parallel operation of things. And what I mean by that is that, okay, my dad lives in northern Wisconsin. All right. I have friends that live all across the United States now, people that have Wires X. So if I'm using the repeater, if someone's using the repeater for a general conversation, whether it be analog or digital, now with my setup that I actually have here out of the way, I can actually show you here. I could take my handheld, talk directly into my FTM 400. That goes into my HRI 200, and then that goes out to the Wires X network. What's even better about Wires X is it's a 100% remote controlled operation. So not only can I do commands and functionality from my handheld here to disconnect, connect to nodes, all that kind of stuff, but I can also go onto my computer and into the Wires X software and control from there. Why would we have two controls on there? Well, let's be pretty honest here. I'm even going to venture to say you guys have probably had it where you've had someone that has come on the repeater, or if you have simplex usage, however you have it, or something like that, that either they're tying up a system, or they're, if you have linking of some sort, maybe if you have an echo link, for example, or an all-star link or something, they're creating links, they're bringing links up, they're collecting it, all that kind of stuff, which is really a pain in the butt. Well, that's the nice part about Wires X. You can shut off or restrict the remote control operation of it, whether that is into what you see on the screen as a simplex node, or whether that's an interface into the repeater. All right. Endaf, I'm going to toss you real quick. How is your setup there real quick?
We have a remote gateway at Mike's house, Mike AS6AB. It's a HRI 200 to an FTM 100, and then it's RF from Mike's QTH to the repeater on the island.
Gotcha. So basically what's happening here is that this slide here is sort of kind of a combination of this slide. So the HRI 200 allowed flexibility to be able to connect directly to the repeater, or to be used to connect to a radio here. And this is a 400, but you guys are using 100. And then that feeds the repeater via RF. Now, the nice part about it is that you can't really do that with any other technologies and have the ability to switch rooms or connect to different nodes or stuff like that on there. If you're like looking at an aspect of DMR needs talk groups, the radio would have to switch talk groups, so that's one of, again, another, I call it a feather in the cap for Wires X, is that you can feed it over the air if you don't want to do a direct connection, which is here. So once again, this direct connection is basically HRI 200 interfaces into the repeater. Then you have radios on the side over here. Those radios will key up, talk into the repeater, and then they can go down Wires X, or they could stay local. So it's again, I'll show you in a little bit here. There's a couple different ways you can configure it. You can configure it sort of that, hey, I only want digital to go down wires X, or I only want analog to go down wires X. And then when you go to the digital side, I only want digital to go down if it meets these parameters or signaling to go down wires X. So it really is a versatile system. And I will tell you, and I don't know if Endaf has maybe a different view or take on it. I feel that the majority of wires X users scratch the surface. They only use probably maybe 2 to 5% of the full potential. I can't say it. Potential of wires X. Now there. Let me move to the next slide. So wires X, continuing down on what it can do. It can operate in analog to analog. It can operate digital to digital, or it can operate analog to digital. In addition, it can operate in a node to node, or it can operate in a node or a node to room fashion. Now let's start out with the digital and analog first part here. So here you go. We see a very simple conceptual drawing using a node to node configuration. What I mean by node to node is that I have in this thing, one user has his radio connected to the HRI 200, connected to the computer for the internet. And then that node is connected to another node directly. So let's say, for example, it's between my dad and I. So I am here in Baldwin, Wisconsin. He's up in Hayward, Wisconsin. I could go into my node locally via RF, and then I can connect up to him, to his node, which then comes out via RF. So I could be driving around town or out walking the dog, or he could be out driving around, whatever. And then guess what? We are still able to communicate. That's a node to node. All righty. And in this case, it's analog. The next configuration, my mouse went dead for a second there. I'm sorry, is a room configuration. Now, in a room configuration, it's a room. And I used the reference an example, and some people may get it, some people may not, is AOL. Everybody remember American Online? You've got mail, right? Okay. What was the biggest thing for AOL? Well, email was the first one. And the second biggest thing was chat. You could chat. You could go sit at your computer and just for hours chat with people. And you had private chats or instant messenger, which is like node to node, or you had a chat room, which is sort of like this configuration here. It wasn't reflectors. It wasn't anything like that, because the concept from wires 2 is being played into here, where we're grouping or we're linking, for sake of a better term, nodes together. The difference, though, is one person acts as the room host. So one HRI 200 would set up the room, and in essence, everybody's node connects through the internet directly to that HRI 200. That's why we have specifications on computers, speed, UDP ports, bandwidth, everything like that on there, because when you are hosting a room on wires X, you are not on the Yaesu server. You are not anything. You are in essence called a decentralized operation. And if you've seen any of my videos before, if you heard me talk, I will reference that wires X is a centralized and decentralized system. It's centralized in the fact that when you turn on your wires X software, it's going to call out to the Yaesu server, and it's going to validate, hey, I'm John Kruk, N9UPC. This is my node number. Can I be on your system? And this and this and this. And then the system accepts you, and then starts to download your list of active nodes and rooms. If you've ever looked at the wires X software, which we will in a minute here, all those rooms and nodes you see on there are actual rooms that are online, and that list is updated. So it's kind of centralized. To make it even a better analogy, think of when you connect to it, it's sort of like a phone book, an updated phone book, to saying, hey, I want to connect to my dad. Okay, if I want to connect to my dad, I know his node number, and it's like a phone book. I enter that node number to my node. It goes and it says, okay, hey, I need to connect over to him. Here's his IP address. Here's all this information. And then I establish that connection directly. That's when it becomes decentralized. I'm going from mine to his on there. That is important to understand, because there from time to time, we do updates on the servers, or there may be time to time where we had an issue not too long ago that the internet DNS servers went down. Not us, the DNS servers feeding the node. Guess what? Happens. The internet goes down. Okay. Just like a pothole happens in a road, the internet coughed that morning. But everybody that was connected in a room already, because it's a direct connection, was not disturbed. I have a room running. I call it the Wisconsin link because of how we link things up and everything like that on there. That day, I consistently had 9 people into the room with me. With those 9 people I had in the room with me, we were talking, communicating, not an issue at any way, shape, or form, because everybody was connected into my room that I've hosted here. Now, let's talk about what's going on in the picture, because there's something that some people may say. I was like, wait a minute. The red lightning bolt is analog going in. But now I see at the top the green, meaning the receive lightning bolt is going digital to the right, and now analog to the bottom. What's going on? Well, guess what? WiresX, I said earlier, can transcode at the network level. When you are using an HRI 200, this is especially the case of HRI 200, when you're using that, the HRI 200 is listening in one mode. It's either listening in analog or it's listening in digital. Okay. That's how you have to set your node up. You can't have it both. You would physically have to go in and say analog now. Okay. Now people want to use it in digital, go into your computer, change it to digital. It's not free flowing like that. The reason that it's done that way is if I'm coming in digital, the HRI 200 will then split off. Great finger demonstration, but will split off and transcode and actually make an analog stream. And both of them go down the road to the room. That way, analog users can hear analog and digital users can hear digital. In the case of the picture here, the analog users coming into it, the HRI 200 is actually then saying, I'm going to feed my analog stream into the room, but I'm also going to go ahead and digitize it into a digital voice and send it to the room. So on the picture, the top user at the north compass bearing, and then the east kind of compass, or the right-hand person there, they're receiving a digital audio path converted from the HRI 200 that's feeding the room. The analog user on the bottom, they're getting that analog feed from the room. All right. So this was going on for the longest time. We had this going on, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018, something magically happened. Because here's what it is. When you are using it, I'm going to go back a couple slides here. When you are using an HRI 200, because of the way the HRI 200 works, you need to have the internet. Well, duh. You need to have a non-natted global IP address. And what that means is it's an IP address that is seen from the internet. Sometimes when people have cell phones and stuff like that, their IP address is natted, meaning you are in with the cell phone, you are actually in your carrier's intranet, and they have only a few feeds going out and pulling you in. That's why I tell people, have you ever noticed sometimes where you go to, a website or something on your phone or maybe your iPad or whatever device, and then all of a sudden you'll see an ad pop up, and let's say you're in California, but you see the ad for some reason popping up for ads in Washington or something like that. The reason that that's happening is because right then and there, the feed you're getting from your internet or the cell phone provider, whatever, is actually going out and coming out on an IP address in Washington. So the cookies are coming in and saying, oh, hey, you're in Washington state, where really you're not. Your IP is in Washington state, but you're being fed stuff into, let's say, California. Why do I say that? Because that was one of the requirements. Not everybody can get a global non-natted IP address on an internet connection. So once again, your cell phone, not going to do that. Verizon will give you one, but they're usually charging a $500 flat fee. So it's ridiculous. In addition, you have certain requirements and you had to have certain UDP ports open. If you didn't have these ports open, it would be very problematic. And guess what? People said that. See, it was very problematic. I went along, and when I would travel to California, before we had, I'm going to talk about PDN here, if I wanted to use my WiresX node, literally I'd have to grab a mobile radio, grab obviously an antenna, power supply, my HRI 200, connect it to the computer, and then when I'm at the hotel, I'd have to call down and saying, hi, this is Mr. Kruk in room 713, and I need UDP ports 46100 through 46122 open, please. And thank you very much. I actually did that. And when I did that, the manager, who I happened to actually meet one day and stuff like that, thank goodness, knew I was a ham, knew I worked for Yazoo, blah, 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 blah. And he actually came knocking on the door, and he's like, okay, I saw it was you, John, but hey, just FYI, you kind of made it really weird for us. And the reason being is because guess what? They don't normally open those UDP ports. What am I getting at this? Well, guess what? People who wanted to use WiresX, Some, I don't care about a room. They're like, I don't care. I'm never going to host a room. I just want to connect from my device to there. And I don't want to buy a mobile radio with an HRI 200, with a power supply, with this and this and this. You got to make it simpler, Yezu. So we heard you, and this is what we came up with. We came up with PDN, which stands for Personal Digital Node, PDN. All righty. What PDN basically did was, as I said, you know what? You're going to take your handheld and I always have my cables on the side here. And with these cables that you see in that picture there, I'm now going to be able to hook the radio directly from my handheld to the computer and use Wires X. Don't need an HRI 200. So people then went along and said, okay, wait a minute, I want to do that with the mobiles. Okay, fine. We have the SCU 40 kit. Whoop. My goodness, everything's falling off. Endaf pickup.
So we came up with the SU40.
Ready. We're back. I should have put up that technical difficulty symbol. All righty. So here's the SU40 kit, which is a picture of that on the display also there too. Really what it is. Well, they're very simple and it's very easy in regards and aspects of saying, okay, you have some audio cables here on the SU39 and 40 kit. You have the connection kit to go from the handheld to, in this case, this handheld kit to the computer. And then you also have an adapter. Now, one of the things people said is that, okay, when we introduced it, and I don't know if anybody was at Hamvention in 2018, when we introduced it, we set it up in a way that you had to have a handheld connected to your computer, and then you had to have another handheld talk to it. That did not make people very happy. So basically the concept was this. I have an FT2. I connect the cables to the FT2 connected to my computer. Now I come along with a different radio, FT70, let's say, and now I'm only going to be able to talk from the FT70 to the FT2, and then it goes down to the computer. Okay, that works great because now you don't need an HRI 200. Now you can use digital on there, and you didn't have to have all the problems and headaches of an HRI 200. But guess what? What did that do? Well, then it required people to buy two handhelds. And there are some people that don't want to buy two handhelds. I was shocked when I heard that myself, don't get me wrong, but there are people out there who don't want to do that. So what happened was after we announced that at Hamvention 2018 in good old Ohio, people came up to us afterwards like, oh my God, that's a game changer for Yezu and Wires X and all that stuff like that. But you need to do something different. So we brought it back. We brought the feedback. We brought it all back. We went and looked at it. Then what they did is they said, you know what? Here's what we're going to do now. We're going to add another layer to it. So now what we're going to do is if you want to use another handheld to talk to your handheld, more power to you, my friend. You can do that. You can take your other handheld, talk to it, it's connected to there. But if you do not want to go ahead and have to use two handhelds, now you can go into a mode, which we call direct mode or direct operation. And now I could take the handheld, connect it with the cables, and it acts like a glorified speaker microphone. So literally I'm holding the radio, but the cord is going out and going to the computer. And when I'm talking into the radio, it's not transmitting RF, or it could, depends on which way you have it set up. And then it's taking that audio and sending it down the line to the Wires X network. So that's where a lot of that feedback came back from it. And it was good feedback too on there. And then that's when we came up with, if you notice here, it says PDN HRI in parentheses mode devices. So now there's two forms of that PDN operation. So PDN Direct Mode, I'm going to go through here a little bit kind of quickly here, but PDN Direct Mode is basically, you see this user, he's using the speaker and the microphone on either the handhelds or the mobiles. Yes, the mobiles also. So you could have a 100, a 400, a 300, and basically pick up the microphone and act like you're talking with RF, but you're not. You're actually going down Wires X network. And as you see here in this illustration, it goes into the computer. No HRI 200 is needed. Then connects to the internet, and then it can go either directly to another node or can go to a Wires X room. All right. PDN Access Point, though, adds another layer of functionality to it. So now with PDN Access Point, not only do you see the user using the speaker and microphone, but you also see the user can now use it via an RF. So this is really great because I've used this a few times. People haven't realized it. Sitting in the basement here, doing that, talking on Wires X, and all of a sudden I was like, I gotta let the dog out. Or, you know, it's a nice day. I don't want to stay cooped up in my basement. Okay. We actually had a day over 50 degrees, right, in Wisconsin. So I said, okay, fine. So now what I'm doing is I'm talking to my PDN node, But instantly, I just go ahead and pick up the radio and start talking on the radio. No one knows the difference. It's just simple and sweet and easy and flexible like that. Now, the thing with PDN modes is PDN, personal digital node. What that means is that it is a digital feed only. So with PDN, I can only go into digital only rooms or digital only nodes. What happens in that case is that really kind of had problems with people because not all nodes and not all rooms are completely digital. There is a strong analog user base within the WiresX network. A lot of people are like, well, why would you use analog? Because guess what? We leave no hand behind having WiresX. All righty. Other digital modes you do. Other digital modes are like, you know what? Today we're going digital. Bye-bye analog. We didn't want to do that. We wanted you to be able to convert and migrate and integrate on how your terms are. So when we were doing this new setup, we came up with HRI mode. So HRI, radio face, hardware radio interface, by the way, that's what HRI is. So if you ever see that on a trivia question, what happens in this case is you still have the two modes. You have direct, which is once again, we're using our radio as the speaker and microphone. All right. Or you have HRI access point. An HRI access point means that I'm talking via another radio to my device, which is then going down WiresX. Now, timeout. Okay. Couple things you need to be aware of. When you're using HRI mode, you need to use the full cables of the kit because that's what causes the analog and digital stream to go down. PDN, you only need to use the cable because that's digital. Digital can go down that SCU19 or the SCU20 cable. With HRI mode, you need to have that extra set because a radio is creating a digital feed and a radio is creating an analog feed. But in HRI access point mode, the communications only over the air is digital only. Okay, it's digital only. Now, some people say, well, wait a minute then. If I want to have a WiresX node that goes analog via RF, what do I need to do? Well, what you need to do is you need to use the HRI 200. That is the only way that that is going to produce an analog RF signal. If you don't care about an analog RF signal, that's fine. You can use the PDN and HRI modes and it's not a problem whatsoever. Or so as things have progressed, now this is the cool part about it. As things have progressed and PDN functionality started to take over, now you can merge systems. And with the IMRS technology, you can integrate WiresX into it. Now, I don't know if you have, do you guys have IMRS or no?
No IMRS at all.
Okay. Real quick, for those that don't know IMRS, once again, was a solution to the WiresX thing. So WiresX, you need an IP address, you need to have internet, and you need to have ports open, or if you're using PDN, you have, basically internet, stuff like that. People said, you know what, I don't have internet access, or I don't want internet access, but I want to be able to link my repeaters in true digital voice format. So that's what IMRS does. And basically, a little board inserts into the repeater, and then IP traffic comes out of the back of that board, and it gets routed to the other IP address of the other repeaters. When you key up on repeater A, it will go to repeater B via IP. I said IP. I'm not saying the internet, because you could do the intranet, you can do the anything that links together. People have used Ubiquiti ham mesh networks and stuff. I'm actually on the county microwave network. They allow us to have two repeaters on there between the two sites, and it just goes without a problem once there. But go ahead.
I just want to point out, there's a lot of confusion with the IMRS boards. People tend to think that just the IMRS board will give you WiresX access, which it doesn't. So I just want to point that out.
Correct. IMRS is a completely separate network than WiresX. But does that mean that they cannot operate together in tandem or umbilical cord or anything like that? No, it can. As a matter of fact, if you look at this example, once again on the computer screen, you'll see that there's a user in Florida, as an example, talking on a PDN setup. He's going into either a WiresX room or going to a WiresX node that is feeding an IMRS network. With a combination of IMRS and WiresX and the different combinations that you have, you literally can set up a system of systems. And that's, once again, a progression of how Yaesu System Fusion is flexible in that nature. You know, you can have a bunch of analog repeaters go into wires X to cross over to a bunch of digital repeaters. And I mean, there's so many different combinations you can make on the board. I was asked one time, you know, how many combinations can you make? And I said, well, you know, those magnetic things on the fridge people have where they're like little words and you can make sentences. That's sort of kind of how it is with wires X and IMRS technology in there. Now, let me do this. Let me go to, try to see, I won't screw this up here. I'm going to go and we're going to take a look actually at my wires X screen. Let's see if we got that up here now. Alrighty. I hope everybody can see that. So this is your wires X screen or terminal. So this is the wires X software running on my other computer that has my node set up on it. Alrighty. And I actually have a couple of different setups here at my house. With wires X, you can only run one HRI 200 per IP address. All right, let me repeat that. One HRI 200 per IP address because it needs its own IP address. PDN functionality does not need your own specific IP address. And you literally can run multiple PDN setups on one IP address where you can only run one with an HRI 200. As a matter of fact, my setup here at my house here right now, actually, believe it or not, telephone provider has fiber to my house. I have 4 IP addresses, and I actually have 2 HRI 200s that are running all the time. And then I have 3 PDNs that I can pick up and use anytime I want. One is for linking with some other things that I'm involved with. A second one is actually for me to go ahead and do it on VHF. And the second one is actually for me to go ahead and link on UHF. But this is the screen here that you're seeing on your display. And really what that screen translates to, let me get my mouse down here. Where are we at here? Oh, there we go. I just had it in a second. This is what happens when you use dual screens. So here's a kind of a little bit of a walkthrough here. So here's your node list. So people have asked, well, how many people are on wires X? It's not that popular. Okay, so this is all the nodes. So like my node, your node, anybody knows that are currently in the world is connected. Hey, we're at the D's finally. Get the point? A lot of different nodes out there worldwide. If you want to, you can even go ahead and like, here's Argentina's and Australia's and was it Austria and Belgium and Brazil and Canada, and lots of nodes in Canada, Chile and Colombia, the Czech Republic. Let's go down to the U.S. here. Okay, we're gonna do it this way here. Let's go there. Okay, so here's the USA. So there's a node in USA. Here's all the nodes in USA. A lot of them. Okay. That is just the nodes. Now, the screen here below at the bottom here, I kind of put a blue line there through just so you can see there. These are all the rooms that are active. So let's go to the country here and we'll flip it back over to USA. And these are all the rooms that are active on there. I heard a question, kind of a pre-question beforehand, and I forgot who asked about it. They said, well, you know what? How do I know that I'm connected to a room, or is there any traffic in a room? And what you do is you'll see, like here, for example, this person has a room, but there's no, the act means activity or counts actually in there. There's none in there. All righty. So is that a problem? Well, it could be, because if you're looking for a room that's busy, here, I'll pull up mine here. 21667. I have 6 people in it today. Okay. Let's go to the Yaesu wires X room. Where are we at here? Endaf? I can't find it. Oh, there it is. CQ America has 3 in there. Okay. The LA repeater room has 16 in there. What's your room number, Endaf?
43422.
43422. It's close to mine. My other one. 43422. All right, I don't have my glasses on this morning. Okay, 43422.
Go ahead and connect into it.
Okay, so here, I'll go ahead and actually take my handheld, and I'm going to do this here. First, I got to put the right frequency in there. I use a splinter frequency, just because I can. I know that annoys some people, but I use 1474937. It'd be great if I know how to type today. 1474937. All righty. Whoop. Ooh, turn that down. Hang on, let me change my step here. There we go. So 14749. Can you read that? Okay. 49375. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch it over to digital here. And when I switch it over to digital, I'm actually going to do a handshake here. So this is all. So watch. You're going to see. Watch me in the video and then watch in the side over here. So underneath this audio device here, in a moment, you're going to go ahead and see it switch to V channel. So I push the button there. Oh, hang on. Put it in group mode. Hang on.
It's a press and hold, John.
Yeah, I got to push and hold. Okay, so station info TX to V channel. You see that on there? And then you heard the little Adams family theme. Do. Guess what? Now I am connected. It's kind of hard to see maybe on there. That's my screen. Now I'm connected into my WiresX node. I did the handshake. So if I want to go to your node here, all I'm simply going to do is just put in search and direct because I know the ID on there. And the ID is, what is it going to end up? 43422.
422.
So 43422. And then what I'm going to do is hit the enter button. See it's on there? I'm going to hit the enter button. Now look at that. Now if you see it, whoop, it actually appeared on a screen here. And because I'm running dual screens, I apologize. So there we go. I'm connected in there, and I see now that there are 3 people in this room here, which is KK6Z TV and me, N9UPC, and N6UTC.
So let me explain what's going on here, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
So I host the room here. I got a HRI 200 in the next room here, and I call the room Freeway Fusion. So if you look at some people like to call it a dashboard. You've got KK6ZTV-ND, N9UPC-home, and then N6UTC-ND. So what's going on here is there are 3 nodes in the room. It's, not necessarily 3 individuals, but 3 nodes. So if you're driving around North Long Beach on 145675, that's where my node is on. So when you're talking into my node, you're actually then going to be heard out through the other 2 nodes. So you'll also be heard on 439-500 in Los Alamitos, where KK6 TV is, and then you'll be heard in the Wisconsin area where John's connected. So these are individual nodes in a room. So they're not necessarily individual people, they're just individual nodes. So in reality, you could be being heard on RF, across the region by multiple people. Go ahead, John.
And that's a good point, Endaf, because remember, these are nodes. So right now, this N9UPC home, that is my WiresX node at my house here. So if I have myself and 3 other people who use this node, that's 4 people from my node. Maybe one of the other nodes in the room is feeding a repeater, and the repeater is talking to how many people. So that's once again that miracle of how WiresX works. You are connecting nodes together to form a room in a room here, but you can have multiple people on a node via RF. So there's a network component and then there's an RF component. Now, I will tell you this, we get asked this question a lot. Can you link a room to a room? No, you cannot. Okay, it's like saying, can I link a house to a house? No. If you want to go another analogy, a room is like a house. I come over, I'm drive my car over to a house. It could be just me in the car, it could be me and my family in the car, whatever the case may be. That is the car, quote unquote, my node. Now, when I go to your house, I pull into your garage and I get out of the car, and now I'm in your house. That's the room. So does that make sense? So kind of how it works on there. Now, here's the cool part about it. I got my handheld here. If I key up on my handheld, N9UPC testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you saw that, it said on the screen there, net went digital, and then it went from local to internet. What that meant is that when it says internet, that's on my computer saying, hey, I'm receiving a valid signal on my RF frequency here, and it is feeding it into the network. So now I am going down on there.
N9UPC, N6UTC.
Good morning. And as you kind of see, there's not a whole heck of a lot of a lag or delay either on things here too.
Yeah, good morning, John. No, a few milliseconds maybe, but
so there you go. That is actually a usage of Wires X. Very simple, very easy, very straightforward. Now, all the different devices that we have out there for Yaesu can control the node. Certain functionalities are going to be more apt into, like, let's say handheld. Like in here, I could send a picture. I could also send a voice. I could send a text message. If you're using, let's say, just like an FT70 here, the FT70 is just going to allow you to connect and talk real-time voice. I can't send a picture. I can't send a text message. I can't send a picture, text message, or a voice recording. Not an issue for some, not a problem. They just want to communicate with voice. Once again, very simple and easy to do on there. If I want to disconnect, excuse me, I just push and hold the band button. And now you watch the screen, boom, I just disconnected from that node. Now, let's say I want to go to my node here, okay? Now, my node is going to be tied into a network. So 21667, I'm going to hit enter, boom, there it is. Now I just connected to my node, okay? Which there's actually traffic on my node right now, believe it or not. What's happening in that case then is that now I've connected through a couple different options. I connected my standalone node into the room, or what I will do here is I'm going to actually unhandshake. So my repeater here is, let me go ahead and switch over to the different band, is 443, whoop, 443.225. There we go, mode. There. Hang on a second here. Gotta adjust my DPID, or not my DPID, my DGID. So that's people talking to my repeater. Now, what I'm going to show you here is I am actually going to be going into my repeater. Now, if you remember, I was on 147.49375. Notice I'm on my repeater frequency of UHF. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go from my repeater, and I just keyed up my repeater, which then went through the Wires X network. And what you're seeing on my screen here is not my actual Wires X from my room of my repeater, but you're seeing the simplex node I connected to. So that is, once again, that ability for us to connect repeaters or whatever the case is. The node is connected to my repeater. So that node that's coming in there. So right now, if you see this one here, it says N9, whoop, wrong mouse, N9 UPC hub. Okay, that's the hub of my network because everything comes in through there. So N9 UPC hub is my HRI 200 physically connected to my DR2X repeater. My room here, N9 UPC-home, that is my simplex node that I can connect back to my own room. It makes no sense because I'm right in the same room here if I want to. But let's say, once again, I want to connect to your network. So am I going to go ahead and am I going to take my repeater offline and put my repeater into your room there? Well, no, it's not going to do that. I want to simply connect on there. And that's where I can then go back to the band. Whoop, sorry, going through the whole band there. And that's where I can do my handshake again. And now I'm going to disconnect from my node. Okay, heard the Addams Family theme there, as I call it. Now I'm going to disconnect from my node. Now look at that. Now I was back in my node. I just pulled my node out of the repeater. So that is kind of that aspect of the functionality of how Wires X works, how it can be remote controlled, how you can have different users. So there's more in-depth stuff that you can do on there. And what I would suggest doing is going ahead and taking a look at our YouTube channel, Yaesu USA Official. Once again, we're doing the shows, Yaesu, the radio show. That's on Wednesday nights at, what would be 8 p.m. my time. So would that be your 6 p.m.? Yeah, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. your time in California. But if you can't catch the show live or something, sometimes my schedule gets hectic on Wednesdays, I can't do it live, then you can do it recorded, and then you can go back and you can watch it over and over again. So let me unshare my screen here. I guess what I'll do here is kind of turn it over for questions that people may have about Wires X, that they want to ask or comment on.
All right. So thanks, John. And let's see, we've got Mark K6MBL with his hand raised.
Hi there, great presentation. I just want to make sure I say that. It was very informative, and I'm a new ham, and this is new to me, and Wires X has been something I've been interested in. I just want to clarify and confirm, because I'm trying to process, there's a lot of information, and you're doing a great job explaining what is to me a complex topic and relatively easy to understand terms. I just want to make sure I understand. If I have a FT3DR, and if I wanted to get on Wires X, I would need the STU 39 package, and that would basically get me up and running initially on Wires X. And as long as I have a computer, an internet connection, and the STU 39, I'm good to go.
That's 100% correct. So don't let people fool you. That's another thing too. The software is free. So what you would have to do in your case, you'd have to go out and you'd have to buy an SCU 39 kit. You can get it at any of the HROs. That's really kind of local there to you. Or if you have another vendor like you'd like DX Engineering or you like Gigaparts or something like that, any of our authorized Yaesu dealers sell this accessory. What you then have to do is you do have to register for Wires X. Now, it's very simple. It's an easy process. You just go to our website, our Wires X website on there. And once again, if you go to, I think it's episode 2 of Yaesu the Radio Show, we do talk about it. We do kind of show where it's at. You have to register the device to get on the network. Once you get that DTMF ID, you'll put it into the computer and everything. But once you're at that point, you are good to go. You are easy and good to go. I'll tell you how easy and simple it is. Kind of a quick, funny story. So when we were testing the beta testing back in 2018, I did, of course, do a lot of flying pre-COVID on there. And one of the things we wanted to test out was to see how flexible Wires X PDN operation could be. So what better way and place to test it than LAX, right? Because that's that's a mecca of everything, right? So if you've never been to LAX, it's horrible. Anyways, but so I'm sitting with my computer at the gate. Now, mind you, I have a tan. Sometimes I look like an evil guy, as someone put it one time. But I have my computer. I have at the time my FT2 connected with a bunch of cables to the computer. And I'm just sitting there at the gate going ahead and talking on this and this and this. Little did I know that having a radio connected with wires to your computer and sitting in ALX and LAX area by the gate and talking to people, you get to meet an incredible class of people. And that would be the LAX airport police, as well as some security staff. Once I explained it to them what was going on, once again, thank God there was a ham there on the LAS or the airport police, but it was kind of like you're sitting there. And the reason I bring up that story is because I always think it's just hilarious. But more importantly, you can have any connection with your FT3 and your cabling kit. So if you only have a cell phone, if you have it there, I mean, I've used it from the Starbucks cafe. I've used it at McDonald's, literally the McDonald's Wi-Fi. Just grab that internet connection. You are going to have to use a Windows computer. I know some people don't like that. Some people are Mac users, some people are Linux, all that kind of stuff. But you do have to use a Windows computer. But otherwise than that, you are good to go.
Appreciate that. And great story, by the way. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
A follow-up question is, if I wanted to get more high speed, I could get the HRI 200 and make sure I have a global, I think you said unnatted global IP address, probably register as well. And then I can use my radio and connect to the HRI 200, and that would get me on board too.
Correct. Now, one of the things I guess I didn't really clarify is the HRI 200 gives you a couple of advantages over non-HRI 200 usage. So the HRI 200 also acts sort of like a quote unquote little server, for sake of a better term, because that will allow you to host your own room. Okay. It will allow you to do analog via RF, and then you can also upload text messages, you can upload pictures, and you can upload voice messages. The reason I say that is because there's people who don't necessarily want or need to host a room. They don't want to do analog. They don't care about picture text messaging. They just want to be able to maybe use a base radio instead of having to use their handheld. So you can use a mobile radio at your house in PDN mode. So the FTM 100 you could find used on the used market now, the FTM 300, which is a new radio in production, and the FTM 400, which is a new radio that's still in production. And I say new meaning it's still in production. It's not like a end of life radio or anything. But those can be connected with the SCU 40 kit, which was that second kit. And it's the same process as you kind of had going with the FT3, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it. Again, great presentation.
Thank you.
One thing to add to that, remember, the radio that's interfaced to the HI200, you cannot use directly. It just becomes a node radio. It does nothing. You have no control over it. It's just there as the RF component in your system. So if you have a HI200 interface to the radio, you will have to use another radio to access it.
That's correct. That's a good point. It didn't there. Yeah. So we can actually call it a donor radio. And what the donor radio means is the FTM 100, 300, 400 for digital, or if you got like our new FTM 6000 or anything that has a DIN connector on there, a 6-pin data DIN, you can use that for an RF or analog RF for the HRI 200. But what happens with the mobile radio is basically you are putting that radio into mode where it turns off the internal brains, for sake of a better term, and then HRI 200 becomes the brains of it. And the HRI 200 only works with a mobile radio, so you cannot connect a handheld to the HRI 200. So that kind of factors in cost, and that also shows why we invented PDN functionality.
So I have a question on that, on the device registration. So with the HRI registered, you've got your node, your room, and then say you have another radio that you want to do PDN. That has to be registered separately for the capabilities, the unique capabilities of traveling with the radio, with the computer, where you leave the HRI at home and you have to have that radio registered separately.
Actually, no, there's not. A lot of people do think that you can do that if you want to. The only time you really need to register radios individually for usage is when they are going to be used at the same time. So for an example, my node here at home is 33369, I think it is, on there. So that's with my HRI 200. If I took my computer that has an HRI 200 and I unplugged that HRI 200 from the computer and I plug in, let's say, my FT5, I can use my FT5 as a PDN node, but it's going to show up on the WiresX network as my HRI 200 number. All right. But so for an example here, I'll say this. So I have my room over here, my Wisconsin Link room. It's node 11667 or room 21667. All righty. I want to use my FT5 at the same time. So let's say my room is feeding all of its jazz, but let's say I want to hop onto your guys' room over there and I want to use my FT5, then I would need to have the FT5 registered because they're going to be simultaneous connections. But we have Endaf. I can't even think. I know like one guy, what's his name? Is it Nev out there is he in Ohio? Kev, that's it. Kev, he works for Sprint, I think it is, but he's called in a few times. Nice guy and everything like that. But he has that. He has the HRI 200, and then he has a couple different mobile radios and a couple different handhelds. And he just registered the HRI 200, and he just then unplugs the HRI 200 and does the other things on there. So that is with it. Now, point of understanding, you can have an HRI 200 and use a PDN on it, okay, meaning you can unplug the HRI and use a PDN operation on there. You can have a PDN and use a different PDN on there, but you cannot have a PDN and try to use an HRI 200 on there, okay? There's something weird in the system about that if you can't put an HRI 200 on a PDN ID. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. So if we're going to do this multiple connection or multiple devices thing, register your HRI 200, then everything else would fit underneath perfectly.
And I'll add to the confusion here. My setup at home, I have a HRI 200, which is registered, which is on all the time on the network. Then I have a PDN registration, which I registered my old FT2. Now on my other PC, my main PC, I have I have Wires X also on that computer. So when I boot that up, connect my FT2 to it, then the software then recognizes my radio and its ID number and then gets me the network. Then I unplug my FT2, and then now I plugged it into my FTM 100. So I run 2 Wires X nodes here simultaneously, one on a HRI 200 on a different computer. And then I run an FTM 100 in direct mode using PDN capability on another computer. So once you've registered on the network using your registered device, you can then, like John's saying, plug and play the different machines. And then another thing I do when we were traveling, I take this laptop I have here, and I take my FT2, register the network, and then I take the FT2 out, and I take my FT3 with me, and then I get on the network from wherever I am. I'm hoping I didn't add to the confusion.
No, but that's what I wanted to clarify was, at what particular point do you have to diversify on your registration? And because, we have multiple computers, multiple radios, and we want to be able to work and be mobile with the Wires X environment. It's not all just going to be sitting in our ham shack. We want to be able to take it with us on the road, be able to connect in that PDN, and then be prepared for it, have it all registered and ready to go before we're traveling. And then because it is sort of a manual process to get registered in the behind the scenes process. So it's not an automated process yet on that.
But what I tell people on the phone when I talk to them is, I have 5 radios, so I need to register each individual radio. No, you don't. If you want to register each individual radio, then you need to be running 5 different computers running Wires X simultaneously. So, it's not like another digital voice mode where you got to have co-plugs, etc. You only need to register a device if you intend to use it as a node.
And then one other thing I'll run on there, just kind of tag off there. You mentioned it there. Yes, the Wires X registration process is all done manually. So the reason we do that is because we want to keep Wires X for an amateur radio network. We don't want it to turn into a business network or somehow a user hijack it and try to, for him turn or her turn it into a business network. So everything is done manually. And there literally is one person in Japan that when you submit a Wires X registration, he will check your call sign. He will check your address. If anything is not correct, they will go ahead and they will reject the registration.
Well, it's just my opinion on that one is that process could be automated and the rejections could be handled slightly different. But I understand the manual process for now. And also, I know this is something that's come up before. I know it's Windows based software for the Wires X. And is there a possibility of listening and maybe making a Mac version of that client?
Not right now. And the reason I've been actually told, because people have asked that and stuff, is because of the way we integrate and use the .NET framework of Microsoft on there. That is the biggest thing that prevents us from going ahead and migrating or going to a different platform of Mac or Linux even or anything like that on there. So right now it intends to stay at the Windows operating system software.
All right. I know I keep asking that every time because I have a lot more Macs than I do on the Windows now on that side. So, all right. So is there any other questions? And Mike AI6AB, I know you're the host of our Wires X node. And is there any other questions that anybody else has?
Not really. The only question I have is, will there in the future be something to combat Windows rebooting and downloading and stuff and being able to get back on a little bit swifter?
It all comes into how you have it set up for your WiresX software. So when initially you load the WiresX software on, you can actually go into it and set it up that it will auto launch on there. I have that set up with mine, that when we lose power or something like that, or the computer reboots or does an update or something like that on there, it will automatically go back on. And not only will it open up the WiresX software, but in the WiresX software, there's also settings to automatically reconnect to a room. So my node that I have here, which is attached to my repeater, which is the host, if that goes down, that computer goes down and reboots, it's going to come back up, reconnect into WiresX. So WiresX will open back on its own. And then after WiresX program starts up within a minute or so, I think maybe even a little bit less, it will automatically reconnect to my room on there. So there is stuff that you can, set up in there to do that.
The way we have it set up right now on Mike's computer is that I don't think AutoStart is checked. I don't remember, but it's definitely set up to reconnect to the CARA room once the software comes up.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep. And that is a feature, like I said, built into there, that you can go in the file system and under file and under settings and stuff, you can change on there. So it all depends. Lots of times people will do one or two ways. They want it to auto start, then they uncheck it, or then we have the exact opposite. Well, people call in and contact us and say, I shut down my WiresX software and it automatically comes back up. Well, that's because you have auto start selected.
Yeah, understand. Well, I'll get familiar with it a little as they go on. It seems to be quite a nice piece of software, actually.
Yeah, and like I said, it was really, like at the beginning of the presentation, it was really designed for people to kind of have it. That's why if you notice there is a chat box in the software itself, because it was allowed for people to sit down and use it like a terminal program to talk to the other node users. So for an example, if I connected back into your room that I was just in earlier there, was it the Freeway network one?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I wanted to do that, if Endaf is at his terminal and I'm at my terminal, and I need to go ahead and saying, hey, just FYI, and like in the chat box, hey, I'm going to disconnect from your room here at 3 p.m. today because I want to go join a net with my room, but I'll be back afterwards. He could walk by his WiresX computer. Oh, wait a minute, hey, John's gonna stay connected, but at 3 p.m. he's disconnecting out. So there is that high level functionality of communication between the two there, and once again, you saw how when I connected on my screen, it popped up, it gave me a little information box. You could add pictures to that. So once again, that's why I said maybe 5% of features are being used on an average for WiresX.
Yeah.
All right. We have, okay. We have one question from Michael, and then Mark, I see your hands raised. So let's, Michael added in the chat that he said, well, more of an ask. Can you show how to hook up to a repeater that does not have an internet connection like CARA is using? So we have our gateway. It's not running on the repeater itself. It's running on a hosted computer that's RF connected. Do you want to run through a quick demonstration, maybe Endaf or somebody that would like to?
I'll explain how we do it again.
Okay.
We have a HRI 200 and an FTM 100. So if you look at the shared image right now, pretend the 400 is the 100. So sitting at Mike's house, there's a Windows computer running the software connected to a HRI 200 and an FTM 100, sitting there in the corner of Mike's shack, and it's set up to the repeater's frequency. So then, it feeds the repeater any wires X that comes into the network via RF. So in essence, it's pretty much a remote gateway. So the HRI 200 is not connected physically at the repeater site to the repeater, because we don't really have, great internet up on the mountain in Avalon at the airport there. Yeah, I know there's internet up there, but I don't think it's really that efficient. So as of right now, the equipment is sitting at Mike's house, feeding the repeater via RF. And if John wants to add to that.
Yeah, and that's basically really what it simple is you're getting connection from point A to point B, and it's just how are you actually getting that connection between the two on there. So that really kind of comes into play, and I know it kind of baffles a couple of people's minds, but I give a good example, and I'm not sure if this maybe helps or hinders, but Echolink did that a lot back in the day. They just have a radio that talks only to the repeater. So same thing here. The radio is only talking to the repeater. It's a physical radio. It's like it's a link, you know, for sake of a better term, and because that's really what it is. But that's how your system works, and that's very common.
That's pretty much how we do it on our one of our other repeaters in the network on the 125 centimeter band. I think Albert, right? I think you host it.
Yeah, I host that. So here's where I wanted to maybe explain a little deeper for everybody on the call is when somebody is on their PDN somewhere and they want to talk onto the repeater, then they would connect to the CARA room, which is connected to the node, which is RF connected to the repeater. And maybe that's what we just want to cover there is like, you know, what does it mean to us on the CARA side as to the current configuration or how to use it. So on the RF side, if we're on the repeater, our traffic is entering into the CARA room when everything's perfectly connected and we're up and running. If someone changes the room on the HRI side on Mike's computer, then we'll be talking into a different room or just the node itself if it wasn't connected to a room. And so I think that's where I want to just kind of explain to people, you know, on the CARA side, how it affects us locally with all the configuration and all the options we have available, that the CARA room is a critical piece here. And that explains to maybe Michael as well, and anybody else on the call that has questions, is how we're configured locally. And so does that make sense, Endaf, John, on that?
Let me add to that. So yeah, right now, the node that feeds WiresX to the repeater sits in the CARA room. Now, each individual user who has a C4FM radio or a WiresX capable radio has the ability to remove the node from the CARA room and go anywhere else. What you have to remember, though, is once you do that, you take everybody else in Southern California in the region that the repeater covers with you. So the way we have set it up right now is that if there's no traffic in another room, it'll disconnect from there, then go back to CARA. But one way of thinking is if you want to disconnect from the CARA room and go into CQ America or wherever, any other room, you have to remember that you have to then disconnect from that room. Then you can reconnect to CARA manually, or you can just walk away from it because the system will reconnect itself to the host room, which is CARA. And then I'll add one other thing I'll add. Let's say I now have gone home to visit my family in North Wales and I want to talk to you, Albert, through the repeater. I can then use my PDN setup anywhere in the world and connect to the CARA room. And then I will be heard then through the CARA repeater. And then you'll be able to talk back to me. So that's one of the other advantage PDN does, that you can take the repeater with you wherever in the world.
Yeah, no, that's important. I think that gives us a feel for all the discussion that John's describing, all the technology and how we can implement it locally. And so we can both from anywhere in the world connect to the CARA room and have that conversation. And as long as we have that RF connection to the island, then we're connected to the repeater for everybody else.
Correct. So I've done it with you many times when, rather than using RF from my house to the repeater, I'm actually using my FT100 in direct mode. So there's no RF from my house at all. I'm just going straight into the internet, out through the room, out of the repeater, out to you via RF.
Can everybody see my screen again?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so this is kind of, I just did it quick on the fly, so I'm sorry if you kind of saw screens flashing there because I just wanted to kind of demonstrate this. So in the lower left-hand corner, what you basically have is your HRI 200 connected to your computer. That's physically connected to the FTM 100. Then the FTM 100 goes via RF. So just like another user talking right into your repeater, that's how the FTM 100 operates. And then here you have the user. I just did the FT5 because it was on the screen there, was easy. So the FT5 user is listening. So then when the user goes ahead and then transmit backs into the repeater, the output of the repeater is then received by the FTM 100, which then goes down to the HRI 200, which then goes down to the WiresX network.
Yep. Sounds great. Thank you. And so then we have Mark, K6MBL. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I'm trying to follow along. Endaf, that was a lot of information. Regarding the CARA room or WiresX connection is, so am I hearing that the CARA WiresX is always connected to the repeater, or is it only certain times that WiresX is connected to the repeater, such as our Monday night net and maybe a net at 9? And then my other question is there a separate WiresX, or pardon me, is there a separate CARA WiresX net? Those are my questions.
Right now, the WiresX network, or the connection to WiresX, is on 24/7, and as long as Mike's power is up and he's got internet. So right now we are permanently connected to WiresX via RF. The room that we connect to is our own room that is hosted by Mike. You have the capability to disconnect the repeater from the CARA room and go to another room, whether it's the Ohio link or John's Wisconsin link or wherever. But WiresX is always there. But just again to kind of answer that, it's set up to be connected to the CARA room. So when you disconnect from another room, it should go back to what I call the native room. And no, it's not specific to a particular net. It's on all the time.
Appreciate that.
I think Mitch had a question in the chat.
Oh, let's see. I didn't see it. Did she do it directly to you?
No, my question was,
Okay.
can you control who gets into the different nodes?
Did I lose the connection?
Yeah,
Hello?
Endaf, you were having a little bit of a problem.
I could feel that question for you though. Yes, actually you can. So each Yaesu System
Okay,
Fusion
can you hear me
radio.
now? Hello?
Yep. You there, Endaf? He either lost connection or he's faking it really well.
I think you lost connection.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, can you limit who can actually access the WiresX network and stuff? Yes, you can. So you cannot control and you cannot limit the RF side of things. So unfortunately, you can't like block someone from your repeater in digital. However, each radio has a DPID, digital personal identification, and it's unique to each radio. It's a 5-digit number. It's made up of it's an alphanumeric character set, so letters and numbers, as well as capitals and lowercase letters. In that regard, whoever controls the node, you can block the person off at that node, meaning that when they talk into the node, it will receive it via RF, but it will not pass it down the network. And excuse me, you can also block a person from a room, and people have done that. And I've actually had to do that. I had a person who was connecting to my node and was moving them to other rooms, like was moving to a Japanese only speaking room, moved it to a Scottish room, moved it to a couple things on there. And I was trying to figure out who to do it. Well, I can actually see on the WiresX software who that radio ID was. And sure enough, I had to block that user from being either to access my node at all by doing the handshake like I showed earlier, and then B, block his ID to prevent going down the network. So he could talk into, let's say, my repeater, but if anybody else was on there, they could talk in and go down WiresX. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. But I was thinking, like, if you were using WiresX for a drill, how you could, would you cut out, can you close off certain nodes?
Yes. So you can. Yes. So that's once again another great part. So you have the ability you have to come in it during which way you want to do. Do you want to do limited access, or do you want to limit someone's access? And I know it kind of sounds like the same thing, but most rooms operate in what they call, or nodes operate in what they call an open format, meaning anybody can come in, handshake, use the node, talk down the node, those kind of things like that. You can make it a closed node or a closed room on there. And in that case, what you do is you have to then find out the user either by their call sign or their DPID to allow them to access the node then. And the same thing is with the room on there also too. So yeah, you do have two ways of doing it. I think maybe we're going like, is there a whitelist and a blacklist, as they kind of say it on there? they really don't have that. It's more or less of how you're going to use it. A good case in point is for your European UK standards when it comes to the internet and stuff like that. They have to have the ability, and we have to have it incorporated too, where you can list your node as being private. So for an example, that when I showed you up on the Wires X screen there with all the nodes in the rooms, there are rooms and nodes on Wires X right now that I can't see from that list because they're quote unquote private and hidden from there. So really, once again, it kind of is up to you. Now, let me give you a good quick case in point. I worked with the search and rescue group out of Kentucky, and they were using the Wires X system and stuff set up for them, and they liked it because what they would do is they would actually take and set up an HRI 200 out in the field with it. And then what people could do is they could take pictures from their devices, and then they can upload it to the HRI 200. And then from that point is that they could actually, the other people can come in and then download it when they needed to, or they could see what was being uploaded on there. In that case, they made that HRI 200 restrictive in that case, and only allowed the users for the search and rescue team to be able to access that node. So if I was out there, let's say as an example with my radio, if they didn't have my ID and didn't let me have access, I could not access that HRI 200 node, even though others are.
Is the WinLink program software compatible with Wires X?
No. Wires X by definition is a closed network. There's no source code open for it or anything like that on there. WinLink is obviously more of a data program, just using the analog input on the radios on there. So it is completely two separate types of programs, designs, compatibility.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I've got a few. Who was the questions now? Because we've got Ike and we've got Tom.
Mike, AI6AB.
Okay, go Mike and then Ike and then Tom.
Okay, as far as pictures and any information coming in on the HRI 200, is that stored on the HRI 200 or is that stored on the computer?
It's stored on the computer through the file subset of Wires X.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. And then Ike.
Yeah. First off, I just want to thank everybody for this. This is great. I'm really learning a lot here. I'm new to Wires X. I haven't really used it much. I am on CARA, and like right now I'm on there, and I'm on Wires X, and I'm hooked up to Catalina ARA through Wires X RF. I don't have a cable or anything. It's just I just hooked up through RF, and I've never went on there and seen it switch to a different room. It's always Catalina. But I'm kind of confused because you said that if somebody switches it, we all go to that room. I understand that, but I've never seen it off Catalina. And I'm trying to connect to a friend of mine. It's AB7CQ. He has the whole Fusion Yaesu set up in Tombstone, Arizona. And when I change to that, it does. It connects. It has connected before. But I didn't bring anybody up. Maybe nobody was listening too. But also, sometimes I get busy signals. Which is, I'm not sure what that is. And the other question I have is, does Yaesu itself have an RF set up in Cyprus?
So, okay, a lot of good questions there. So we'll break it down one by one here. So real quick, the what room your node sits on or your connection is totally based upon the user who's running the Wires X software. So once again, you have, tiered structure where a node can be open. So for example, my node here at home, I don't normally stay connected to a room. For my node itself, I usually, like the one I connected, I just kind of round robin it. It doesn't sit normally. My node over here, my other node next to me, kind of off to my side over here, that is always permanently into my Wisconsin Link room. I actually have it set up that even for me, if I wanted to pull that node out of that room for somewhere, I actually have to come physically to the terminal and do it myself on there. So that's the one setup on there. So it depends on how your local node is set up on there. Getting back to that though, this kind of the second part of the question is yes. So if you went and your node allows it, I'll put that caveat there because I'm not sure how the setup is. I'm sure someone could probably tell me here, is that if you went in, did the handshake with that node and then moved that node, then yes, anybody who is on that repeater or that link that you're accessing via RF, they're going to hear where you moved the traffic to on there. So could it have been that someone wasn't, listening to the radio at that time? That's correct. When you connect to a room and you do the handshake, and it will, if it does the Atom Family theme, the do, that means you've connected into it. You're not going to get that connect tone if you cannot connect into the room. What you'll get is you'll get a dee or like a dee kind of noise on there. So that's how you can tell that you're connected in there. Sometimes people just don't talk on the radio. Unfortunately, that happens. The third question that you were talking about on there was the busies. So there's a couple things that can be called by busies. One, if you're trying to connect to a node and a node is already connected to a room, that may cause a busy. The user may have it that it blocks connection. So for example, my node, which is connected into my Wisconsin link room all the time, I have it set up that if anybody tries to connect to it, it automatically is going to reject it because I want my node to stay in my room. Because remember, room is virtual to the HRI 200. So even though you have a room, you have to connect to it in order to get in there. And then the third question, or the fourth question, I guess.
RF and Cypress.
Yeah.
Oh, the RF and Cypress.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do have a test node that we have on there, but I think it's just really internally in the building, correct, Endaf?
Actually, no. We have two nodes in Cypress.
Oh,
One's internal for
Yep.
testing, and then there's one on 145.690.
That's right. You did. That is right. That is the one there.
Now the range is not the best because it's on top of the building in Cypress. So, I know certain people in parts of Orange County can hear it, and I can probably hear as far as the 605 freeway. I'm not sure if you're going to get here in Whittier, but yeah, 145.690.
I'm at the top of the hill, so
You might hear it, and it's set into the CQ America room. One thing I would say, Ike, trying to talk to your friends in Arizona, you most probably try to connect to the node. That's why you got the busy. So if you want to connect to your friends in Arizona, try the room number. The rooms always start with the number 2, the number 4, the number 6, and the number 8.
Okay, yeah, because he's got a full setup. He's got a 2 meter and 440, and it's all, they got it hooked up to the system fusion and the whole deal. So it's a repeater.
Right. So his node or his repeater is probably in a room, and you probably tried to connect directly to his node, which is already being used.
Okay.
So try connecting to his room.
Now,
Okay.
one other thing I'll add to the caveat there, and it kind of went back to I believe it was Midge, I think, that was asking about like blocking and stuff like that. You can, once again, you can actually block users and you can block other nodes on it too. So that's a nice part if you get someone interfering with you on Wires X. Not saying that that is happening, but that could be a cause for busies. We've had people that have contacted us right enough and have gone ahead and said, hey, I keep getting busies, and we kind of do some things and are like, well, we're connecting fine and this and this. And then after doing some digging and contacting a few people, we find out, no, that room blocked that node because that guy was always coming in there and causing problems. So,
and then you have to tell the customer, they probably blocked you. Well, why would they block me? I don't talk to them.
Yeah.
Hey, if you know your history, they're probably blocking Ike Clanton trying to get back into Tombstone. So there you go.
Yeah, it's I kind of equate it when I've had those times where I've had to tell a customer that the issue you're having is because the user of the node you're trying to connect to has blocked you. It's sort of like trying to break up someone. It's like, hey, when you're in high school, hey, yeah, Bill, Sherry doesn't want to see you anymore. Goodbye.
It's not you, it's me.
It's yeah.
All right. So next up we have Tom, W6ETC.
Hi. One of the things I do with CARA is I run a net Monday through Friday, and from time to time, the questions come up. The only familiarity I have with wires and Wires X was that at one time, I still have the 350 AR, the A2 FTM 350 AR, which has wires, which is basically pretty much a boat anchor in terms of any sort of wires capabilities when you came out with Wires X. But the confusion sometimes seems to be the question, and that was I guess I was whining there. But if I want to get into Wires X, I'm going to have to pretty much start from scratch, correct?
Correct. Let me see. Let me think how I could. So if you want to do digital wires, if you want to do C4FM, then yes, you would need to get a C4FM radio. However, you have an FTM 350. So if someone is accessing or you're accessing a analog or FM Wires X node, no, then you're good to go. You can use that radio. But yes, if you want to say, hey, I want to talk digitally into Wires X on, let's say, the CARA, or let's say my room or something like that, then yes, you would need a radio. However, that is where PDN functionality is going to come in to be a big play for you, because now you just have to buy, let's say, like an FT5, excuse me, or one of the mobile radios, and then buy the cabling kit, and then you're good to go.
Okay. Now, I'll explain to you a couple of questions that have been, I've seen it more than 2 or 3 times on Net at 9. Forgive me if I don't say this correctly. KM6PRA just recently asked the question that he's very confused between the difference between C4FM to Wires X. Let me see. What is the difference between C4FM and Wires X? And my quote, his frustration was around Wires X and the ability to find the node. But so I guess there's confusion between the two. What would be the best resource that I could point operators to with regards to this?
It's gonna come to an understanding of it. So people think Wires X is fusion, and it's not. It's like going ahead and saying, well, what's the difference between FM and then a linking radio? C4FM is the digital technology that we refer to as CAI, which is a common air interface. Now, C4FM is a type of digital technology. Basically what it does is, in the quick answer is that there's a vocoder, which is a voice encoder decoder, and then it mixes it with 4 different frequencies, 2 positive frequencies and 2 negative frequencies, and the frequencies are the same. So an example is like maybe 970 hertz positive, 970 hertz negative, 200,700 positive to negative 2,700. So the C4FM is how the digital signal goes. Public safety uses C4FM also, but they're not compatible to one another. DMR is a type of 4FSK shifting. Okay, so the C4FM is how the signal is put into the 1s and 0s that go out. Wires X is nothing more than a linking ability. So if you think of it, to give an example, C4FM is to FM as Wires X is to Echo Link. All righty. You can do FM without Echo Link or All-Star. Okay. You can do C4FM Yaesu System Fusion without Wires X. It's just a mean of linking. We talk about that a little bit in our Yaesu, the radio show. We've talked about kind of like a little bit of history at Yaesu and C4FM and all those kind of things like that on there. So there are some good resources that are out there like that on there, but just, I guess, kind of an understanding of terms.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is we'll try and point them that way. Is that the best resource with regards to Wires X education and maybe questions or Q&A?
I would say that we did it. I'm trying to pull it up here as we're talking on the fly here. We did a let me pull it up on my other screen here. I apologize. Some days technology. I'm just pulling up our YouTube channel here real quick, and I can tell you the exact episodes, unless, Endaf, if you have it off the top of your head.
Well, if Tom wants, I'm assuming somebody asked a question as part of your Net at 9 group, right?
Yes.
So if you want them to call me at work, I mean, I can kind of explain them and point them in the right direction too, rather than hold it up here.
Okay.
So I'll email you my phone number. I'll work in the extension.
Okay, I'm just trying to help our listeners. That's all. Thank you.
But John's right. I mean, System Fusion is more of a brand name. C4FM is the digital mode, and WiresX is just a linking system. So in theory, if the repeater is connected to the Wisconsin link room and people are talking in there, any individual with a C4FM radio will hear that. He will hear the traffic coming via WiresX. They don't need to be in a WiresX mode.
Okay.
And then I just pulled up our YouTube channel here. So we did episode 2. It's called WiresX, the ins, the outs, and setup. That was actually about a month ago now. We did episode 3, which is the HRI 200 setup. So we delve in like setting it up with the HRI 200. And then we did episode 4, which was WiresX PDN, which kind of goes over that. So that's like the last, over the last month, we did those 3 episodes, and it gets a little more granular and kind of expands slightly on what we talked about here today.
And Tom, check your chat box. I sent you a direct message.
Okay. Thank you.
Endaf, you're not going to publish that information to everybody? No, just kidding. All right. So then Mark K6MBL also asked if for future presentations, more regarding the C4FM or System Fusion protocol. And so maybe one of the things to consider is that we look at the existing YouTube channel that John has and content there for understanding on the C4FM side. And also we can also come back around. I know on the agendas for future odd month Zoom sessions, we're also going to delve into other technology and other RF topics. So we don't necessarily will have it like digital the whole time. But I thought this was a great opportunity to get us all better defined, better into the configurations and understanding as we're all exploring the digital net a little bit further. So Mark, we'll have to get we can have conversations on our nets and on our repeaters and other pieces as well further. And then we'll also share links on further C4FM topics.
Right now, I got a couple of guys. So next meeting will be March. Will be about AMSAT, amateur radio satellites, and then in May we'll hopefully be talking about propagation. And then after that, I'm thinking of maybe getting the mesh network guys in here.
Yeah, that sounds good.
That's great, by the way.
All right. Let's see. Any other questions?
By the way, Mike, like your mustache.
Brian,
Oh, we got Brian's got his hand raised. All right.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the presentation. Good stuff. I have a FT70, right? You know, one of these things is, and John, you were talking about connecting that with a wire kit, you know, a connection kit to a computer. I bought this thinking I could get on the WiresX, but it seems that an FT70 is pretty limited with that. Can I use it if I get that the little kit to plug it into the computer? Can I use this to talk to, you know, all my friends down there at the Catalina?
Unfortunately, no. So the FT70 does not allow for the PDN functionality on there. There's certain things that has to happen within the radio in order to allow it to do the PDN functionality. One of the things actually it is it actually has to have 2 active VFOs and has to have some things with the certain vocoders. As you know, with the FT70, it's a great dual band, but it's a dual band mono display. So there's not actually 2 active receivers on there. That's why the FT5, the FT3, and the FT2 can do it, because it can receive simultaneous conversations, but it doesn't it has 2 active EFOs. Let's just put it that way. So the FT70 cannot do that. But once again, on the FTM 100, the 300, and the 400, you can do that functionality on there. It's something that we're looking from the design thing to continue forward progression. So when newer radios come out, we're looking at trying to incorporate that feature in there. If you have an older like FTM 3200, 3207, the 7250, those were the monoband or dual band dash mount only radios. They don't have that 10-pin DIN port on the back, so you can't do it with those either. But that is for physical connections. With your FT70, yes, you can connect via RF to a WiresX node. And if that node is allowed or allows people to make modifications to it, you can make the modifications to it, meaning like, switch to the room and all those kind of things like that on there. So big difference between PDN functionality and WiresX control.
Okay, thanks very much.
Yep.
All right. Do we have any other hands raised or questions?
Maybe I would like to make a little statement here.
Okay.
As far as the CARA room, I know there were some questions answered about, going from here to there, maybe going to Colorado, Nevada, or even Europe. I mean, that's great. I think everybody should use it that way. Honestly, the best thing to do is, learn how to do that, but also learn how to disconnect too. So that way, let's say if I come home or something, it's the room is that we're associated with CARA now is, let's say, Colorado or Utah or somewhere out there, and people that would like to connect to CARA, and you talk to some people in, right here in the Southern California, will be unable to do that because of the fact that it is somewhere else. So just by disconnecting and learning like if you have the FT70, just put the series of 9s in there and send it. That way it will disconnect and then we'll go back into CARA again. That's just a statement I would just like to make.
And to just tag off that from the Yaesu side, we've talked about people. We actually used to do some podcasts. We might be doing them again on there that are available like on Stitcher and Google and Apple Podcasts. We talked about like proper etiquette and stuff. It is because each node can be set up differently. We always suggest to find out what sort of the rules and regulations and regards are. Remember also too is that you can pull your local node out of a room, but that room is still active. So for an example, once again, you have that node, you're going via the RF into the repeater, that is accessing that node and that node is connected to the room. So if you pull that node out, understand that that room is still active, but that node is going other places on there. People have asked in the past, like, do you have common suggestions or stuff like that on there? I tell people, I know some groups, they have mandatory times and stuff like that, where they'll say, during rush hour times and stuff like that, we don't connect to WiresX. And then other ones are saying, on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, nights between, let's say 6 and 9 p.m., you can move the node, but it is a request first permission. I've actually, as much traveling I've done, I've heard people get on, this is blah, 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 blah. Is the node available for usage? And it's just sits idle. And then once no one responds back and says, no, the node's not in usage, they know that they can move it. But then proper etiquette is to, yes, disconnect and put it back to the way that you found it.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Endaf, you're on mute.
I think this would be probably a good time to wrap it up. Got the VHS contest this weekend.
Yeah, someone's itching for some points there. So all right, we should wrap it up, and also thank John and Endaf for the presentation today, and also all the work that's been done on the Yaesu side to give us WiresX. So thanks, and so
I just wanted to say real quick, my information's up there. So if you do have any questions for me, can't get a hold of Endaf, you don't want to talk to Endaf, or something else maybe, or something like that on there.
I'm right here. I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. I thought I disconnected you. But no, please feel free to email me. You know, we do strive for education within Yaesu on there. So we do like to bring content on there. There's our YouTube channel on there, our other websites on there, and then we do stuff through our Facebook there. So thank you very much for having me. I really do appreciate it. You guys sound like you guys are on the right track and are having fun with Wires X, and you know, just continue on there, and then you guys will be the meccas in the Wires X field.
Thanks, John.
Thank you,
All right.
John. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody for
much.
joining as well. Appreciate all the questions and the interactions, and hopefully everybody got a little something out of the presentation today. So thanks everybody for joining.
Excellent.
So before everybody goes the next meeting will be when is it? March? What did we decide? The second Saturday of the month?
Second Saturday of the month, and March will be the 12th.
So right now, we have Patrick Stoddard, WD90WK, who's one of my satellite friends, will be discussing, don't know yet whether the history of AMSAT or how to use satellite, you know, the satellites up there. So that's what we have for the next Zoom, you know, technical scientific session.
Good deal.
All right. Sounds
You know
good.
what we should be doing? I think the next couple of meetings, we should give away a few FT5s. What do you think? I'm
Wait a
kidding.
minute, you're gonna have to have Dan close his ears on that. It's like, wait a minute. So yeah, no, definitely the FT5 is definitely a great radio on there, and available at HRO. But I don't get any credit for that. So I think it was $3.99 when I got it during the Thanksgiving sale. And well, on top of that, you have to get your cables as well. So don't forget the accessories.
Oh, just one little point here. Does anybody want to see the node?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me unhook a few things here, and I'll turn the computer around and give you a bird's eye view of what it is. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the computer here, and that's Wires X. This is the HR, this is a 100 here that ties us in. And then I use that radio for talking right there. It's a 78. What was that? What is that one, Endaf?
7250.
7250, that's it. So that's the setup right there. All right.
Very nice.
All right, let me turn this thing back around again.
Right. Okay, I'm off to Rancho Cucamonga to Delta Mike 14 for the VHF contest. If anybody hears me, I need some points.
All right.
And what frequency?
Sorry?
What frequency are you
I
on?
don't know. I don't have a specific frequency. There'll be different bands, 6 meters and up.
Okay.
Oh,
ready.
okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Albert, for
everybody.
hosting everything.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.